Welcome back to Explain 2 of the same section, 15.1. So here they're asking us to find if f of x equals log base 10 times x. Find f of 1000, f of 0.01, and f of square root 10. Okay, so I kind of provided these spaces, so we're going to kind of write these in. 1000, 0.01, and the square root of 10. Okay, so first things first, we're going to write this in for our log function. So log base 10, our x value, which in this case is 1000. Okay, again, log 10, and our x value, which is 0.01. And last but not least, we're going to write down log base 10, and our x value, which in this case is the square root of 10. Cool. All right. So now that we have this, we can actually write in exponential form. Remember, b, our base, is going to stay the same. But you'll notice that these two values will kind of switch places. So that would be, my base was 10, that was y, and 1000. Here my b, my base value is 10. Okay. Essentially the y and the 0.01 are going to switch places. And last but not least, our base is 10. And we're just going to switch places between the y and the square root of 10. So y square root 10. Now, you learned how to write certain numbers with certain bases. Now, I'm not asking you to write these out off the top of your head, but try and think of it this way. 10 to the y power is the same as 1000. So 10 to what power would get me 1000? 10 to the first power, 10 to the second power, 10 to the third, or 10 to the fourth? And you should have gotten 10 to the third because that's 10 times 10 times 10. And that means that y, this right here, and I'm going to highlight that so you can kind of see that that and that are essentially the same. All right. Now with this next one, this is a little weird, right? So 10 to what power equals about 0.01. So this one might take a little bit of calculation, but try and think of, well, since it's a decimal, maybe is it 10 to the negative 1 power, 10 to the negative 2 power, or 10 to the negative 3 power? It's going to be 10 to the negative 2. And yes, I'm going to pause here so I can show you how would I verify which one's which. There is a Desmos calculator that helps us with some of these, so I'm just going to verify why it's 10 to the negative 2 before I just tell you that's just the answer. So that way you can use this for homework, your tests, practice tests. It's also just a really awesome tool to help you. So let's go ahead and pause here and open up Desmos. So in my internet browser, I opened up Desmos. Now I'm not going to press start graphing. I'm going to use the scientific calculator, and it will load its life. And some of the ones I told you to try were 10 to the negative 1, 10 to the negative 2, and 10 to the negative 3. So let's see why 10 to the negative 2 is in fact 0.01. So 10, exponent key, which is a to the b power, negative 1. Unfortunately, that doesn't match that decimal. I mean, it is a decimal, but it's not that decimal. So let's go ahead and backspace. Ooh, let me try 10 to the negative 2. Oh, that is the exponent. That is 0.01. Yes. We could also do 10 to the third power. Of course, we already found our answer, but you know, this calculator can do a lot of stuff, so that's kind of cool. All right, and in fact, since we have this open, let's figure out what the square root of 10 would be. So the square root of 10. Ooh, now that's going to be interesting, because that's a decimal. But we just tried all these negatives, and yeah, nothing really came close to about 3.16. So let's see how we could figure out what that y value would be. Okay. So one of the things we learned in the last credit was how to write this using a fractional exponent. Remember here, if this is the square root, what number would go out here? 2. And 10 to what power? Every variable, every number has an exponent. What's 10's exponent? 1, right? So that would be 1 over 2. And now you can see here, let me go ahead and highlight this for you, that in the last problem, y was the same as -2. Just like in the first one, y is the same as 3. And here, y is the same as 1/2. So for my answer for that one, I believe y, oops, sorry about that, y is equal to 1/2. All right, let's do one more. So here I have, oh, I know that cut off a little bit, but essentially you have it in your packet not cut off, right? But it says if f of x equals log base 1/2 x, find f of 4, f of 1 over 32, and f of 2 rad 2. So let's go ahead and write in our values, f of 4, f of 1 over 32, and 2 rad 2. So here I'm just going to write log base 1/2 and my x value, which is 4. I'm going to copy down log base value of 1/2, base value of 1/2, and my x value, which is 1 over 32. And last but not least, log 1/2 base, 1/2 base, and 2 rad 2. Okay. Now we're just going to write this in exponential form. So our base value for each one of these is still going to be 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, and 1/2. Notice how our 4 and y will just switch places. Our 1 over 32 and y will also switch places. And last but not least, our y and 2 rad 2 will also switch places. Okay? So here, let's think about it this way. 1/2 to what power would get us 4? So if I changed 1/2 to this base, I wonder what that would be. Well, since if I wrote 1/2 to the first power, that would just be 1/2. 1/2 to the second power, that would just be 1 times 1, and 2 times 2. 1/2 to the third power. So the more positive I get, I don't see that it's becoming a whole number, right? So that's 1 times 1 times 1, 2 times 2 times 2. Well, what if I write it to the negative power? -1 or -2 or -3. Let's see if any of these yield a result of 4. Using again our Desmos calculator. So I'm back again at the Desmos scientific calculator. I'm going to go ahead and type in my fraction. And I like that this thing has a fraction. It's really awesome. 1 over 2. And you know, we'll put a parentheses around this thing. Parentheses, parentheses. And let's go ahead and raise this to the negative 1 power. Well, that's a whole number, but it's not 4. How about the negative 2 power? Ooh, there is one. That's cool. So that would be 1/2 to the negative 2 power. That would equal 1/2 to the y power. So that would be 1/2 to the negative 2. That means that y is equal to negative 2. Yay. All right, let's continue on. So 1/2 to the y power is equal to 1 over 2 to what power would get us 32? Well, we kind of started doing these a little bit. 1/2 to the 3rd power equals 1 over 8. Let's see, it's probably going to be something bigger than 3. So let's try that Desmos calculator one more time to figure out what that would be. So again, I have 1/2. I'm not going to write it to the negative exponent. Let's try 4. And let's write that as a fraction. Oh, that's kind of nice too. I didn't know that you could do that. So you can write it as a decimal or a fraction. Fraction decimal. Okay, I'm having way too much fun with that, but you can, that's a really nifty tool. So let's try to the 5th power. That is 1 over 32, so that would be 1/2 to the 5th power would be 1 over 32, which means that y is equal to 5. We can write this as 1/2 y to the y power equals 2 rad 2. Now, let's just say, for the sake of argument, I wanted to put that 2 back into a radical. So what number could I square root to get to? Would that be 1, 9, 4, or 16? Which one of these would be equal to 2 if I square rooted it? 4, right? So this is the same as this because they just square rooted 4 for us. Let's actually write that 4 as a base power of 2. So 2 to what power gets us 4? 2, right? So that's 2, and that's another 2. Let's go ahead and continue on. So if I have 2 here and 1 there, and let's say I wanted to write it as 1 base 2, what's 2 plus 1? 3. Now I know you're probably thinking, when are we going to get to the 1/2 part? Well, we can write this as a fractional exponent. All right, and that would be 3 over 2, because that's our outside radical number. Square root for a reason, right? So let's see if we can write 2 to the 3/2 power as a base of 1/2. So 1/2 to what power do you think would get us 2 rad 2, or 2 to the 3/2 power? Now the way we can work this out is seeing if 1/2 to the 3 over 2 power would work. We're going to try that out. And we'll see also, since it's a whole number, if 1/2 to the negative 3 over 2 would work. Now we had to simplify this out to get to these two guesstimates, but we're going to see which exponent yields the same value. So we're going to use Desmos one more time. So let's go ahead and type in first, as you can see here, sorry about that, 2 to the 3/2 power. So 2 to the 3 over 2. Okay. we're going to go ahead and see that. That's about 2.8. Now you're probably wondering, how did you make it stick to the screen? I pressed this little enter or return key. So we're going to try out both of our guesses of 1/2. And again, I'm going to put this in parentheses. We're going to see if that's 1/2 to the 3/2. See if it's the same. Unfortunately, no, but I'm still going to keep it. So I could say I tried it. Let's go ahead and do 1/2 to the -3/2 power. Now you see how I did that? I could also use the fraction key, or I could write the division key, and it still does the same thing. Well, wouldn't you know, this one and this one, they're both the same value. So that means 1/2 to the -3/2 would be what y is. So let's go ahead and write that in. So y is equal to the -3/2 power. Let me see if I can write that a little clearly for you. All right, let's go on to, well, before we go on to the next explain, why don't we go ahead and stop here and have you do problems from explain 2 before moving on to explain 3.